For me, all of life is about, and I'm at the other end of it from you all, about rethinking, reimagining, reinventing, not only every day, but every moment of every day. And that's what this book is about, Birthmark. This is my 3rd volume, and it just came out. And I'll just read a little bit of my preface for you to plug it into the context of this really wonderful theme for this year's TEDx. We move from the memory of a collective identity, memory and myth, into life, and are given certain things like birthmarks, genetics, environment, parents, and all sorts of childhood lessons we absorb. These are our elements. Then we make something, create a self, or create lots of selves that then need sorting out, paring down, synthesizing, as a sculptor carves wood. There is always a trial by experience, by fire, when everything we have made seems to be wrong or go wrong, becomes shattered. My metaphor for this is war. Then, hopefully, if we survive, we mend. And we do that by hunkering down in close to home and reconnecting with deeper things, like nature and each other. My metaphor here is birth, the actual birth of a new life that brings hope, and an inner rebirth. I call this section backyard. Finally, we move into the realm of imagination, will, and action. We can imagine ourselves as and translate ourselves into whole adult identities. We find our own truths that emerge from larger geographies of meaning. We are in complete tune with our universe and in large love, as on an ocean shore. In the end, we give our own myths to the cosmos to contribute to and hopefully enrich the mysterious memory of collective identity with which all individuals after us will be born, memory and myth. I'll read a poem from the elements section. This is water, earth, water, air, and fire. This is for my father, whom I just lost recently, and it's a memory, and I think we use our memories in our transformations and in our rethinkings. I hope you do. It's a favorite memory. Water. Daddy's back became arm, became rod, became line, and a silver fly disappeared in silver mist like silent music. We were planted midstream. Stony brook rushed around my legs in the pre-dawn as if they weren't there. Daddy's rod and reel were fiberglass fancy. It came apart and folded up zigzag like a carpenter's ruler from Montgomery Ward's, and you could barely hear it spin. My bamboo pole was better for dropping in a pool, being still and thinking. Morning ground fog was thick, but I knew every way in and out of Stony Brook for fish or human. I had changed its course with a dam, navigated it like Huck Finn's wide Mississippi on a homemade raft that sank, watched a family of deer drink from it at dusk, pulled its leeches off my ankles. I skated from home to the bridge in town where Mother waited in the thinned yellow station wagon to drive me back warm, and waited every inch to pan for gold or throw the law off my varmint scent. I jabbed and draped and rejabbed my live bait, reared back, flung the wriggler at a thick patch of darkness by the bank where the big one surely lurked, then settled in my wide-legged stance to listen. That time of year, the tumbles, swirls, and eddies were still singing my favorite, their raucous, melting snow song. In August, it was Where's the Rain, a thin, querulous melody. I had a name for every tune. I made them up, lying under a bush, invisible. Of course, I understood I wouldn't hear a thing if it weren't for rocks. Water is silent by itself. Only when it's pushed around by winds and moons and gravity does it start telling tales. Daddy stopped conducting the stream, said they weren't biting here, and headed for his gear. I had a ball jar of worms in a snarl, but everything my father did, he did whole. So he had a whiz-bang green tackle box of highly organized supplies, as if we weren't a few yards from where our family still slept. bobs and sinkers, extra hooks and line, rainbow-colored flies, and a really cool red knife that opened into all sorts of tools, not to mention the thermos of coffee Mother had brewed. But I understood. Pretending is the good part. It gets you through. Daddy grabbed all this and pushed off real slow. Wading in water is hard for grown-ups. There's too much of them, resistance or something. And they don't pick their knees up high and run across the top kicking spray like a well-aimed skipping stone. They just slog on through, leaning into nature with all their weight. Maybe they're afraid of what they can't see, loose pebbles that could bring them down. I watched him move away until he vanished like his own fly, then gave my line an unconcerned look and contemplated how fine life was, waiting in Stony Brook for lightning day. Then I have one. That's for Daddy. You don't realize how much they teach you until many years later sometimes, paying attention. Then I have one from the creating section, the first creating section, Wood, before the rethinking. Wood, number 1. When I was in the tree, I knew things I've forgotten. The way weather gives growth form, wind in high leaves like a jazz horn. But I wanted to be free. I called to the sculptor, kill me, lay bare my grain and see what you see. Let your hands have their way. In my dream, I still hear birth's amazing violence. The crash, the buzz, the scrape, the flay. Naked and erased, I hug my knees in my new smooth shape and wait for the mirror and wait to breathe. War, this was written during the early days of the Iraq War. Garment mender. The city of heaven is emptied. Drowned angels, good and bad, are dumped on the strand by an angry, disgusted sea. Disguised as three-legged starfish and gull-sucked clams, their carcasses call us to wander. Stay-at-home time is over. Gods, the great shape-shifters, tromp up and down, wielding iron scepters huge as uprooted palms. Wind-whipped debris whirls in the wake of their fury. The knee woman smooths her skirt and sighs. Sewing tires her eyes. When nights were a bowl of liquor, no one retired unhappy. When days were all lucky, people had children. Catastrophe came at us slantwise, the way surf slides down the coast. No chance to prepare. By the hour it got here, we were done for. Once we sanctified time and called it history. Scribed elegant narratives traced in gold, sculpted in the hiddenness of deity, and invented a difference between yes and no. Our infant's expression in sleep reassured us that all was as it should be. We had worth. We had words. We belonged to one another. Now we are separate, restless, and full of sorrow. When did the earth become poor, its people zealots, slaves of fear? We have fallen so far. I say to my daughters, do not be female, lest you give birth to evil and suck it in your lap. The seamstress roams the shore with her needle, stitching together the torn edges of wounds, then takes the dead on her thigh and blows into their nostrils. And then putting it all back together a little bit, winter solstice. We gather through winter's long night around our infant and stare like elders who circle a campfire to read the future in embers. We watch her sleep and tell stories about our own pasts in the belief that witnessing will make them last. We wait for a wail of hunger, a dimpled smile, a dream to raise a brow. We stroke the soft future swirling up from her crown and trust the mindless grip of fist around finger. Poor, hapless kinsman, we tremble lest we rouse demons. We name her over and over, low, so she will know her own sound when we are not there. And finally, on the shore, and the metaphor for this is, it's called muezzin, the calls to prayer in the Islamic world. And the beach early in the morning always reminded me of the mosques all over Istanbul, and the Golden Dome, particularly in Jerusalem, the brilliant Golden Dome. I don't know if you've ever been there or not, but once you see that, you'll never ever forget it in the Mediterranean sunshine. So that's sort of the metaphor behind here. Muezzin. I watch a tern try to crack a clam, the two my sole companions. Beyond, a gash in the cloud wall squashes the dawn sun to a burning eye. It stares, it disappears. It drops a high ladder to the sea. Are these the glowing rungs Muhammad climbed? Filigree clumps and wisps to the east form another country of snow-capped mountains, lush valleys, and clear lakes, an Eden of imagination. When mist lifts and sky is erased, the beach becomes a mosque. Brilliant blue-glazed tiles flash beneath a Byzantine dome, and golden sand is etched with seabirds' sacred calligraphy. Below, the opaque ocean holds the rock and the well of souls. Tide rolls out morning prayer rugs fringed with foam. People come down with towels, buckets, shovels, big hats, books, and sunscreen to pray. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Jeff.